And Bill Homewood, who was my sort of professor at the time, always was talking to us about how we approach Shakespeare and the plays in a larger way, from a larger perspective. Meaning, you should know the story, and if you don't know the story, go ask somebody who's been in the play and say, "Tell me about Coriolanus. Tell me what you remember. Tell me about Cymbeline. Tell me the arc of the story." Before you read it, because you get into Cymbeline, you could be all over the place. But if someone sort of gives you something to look forward to, you sort of go in and go, "Oh yeah, this is what they're talking about." So it really helped me to have sort of notches to go through. But when I did that, it also helped me to think about my own plays like that. And as I was going through these letters and notes that I had been writing, I ended up with 45. I was back on the plane. I ended up with 45 pages of a play called "In the Red and Brown Water" that I didn't even know I'd written. I just, from these notes, had sort of put slices of dialogue in. I cut them out and put them together, and I had the first act of that play. So it was because of that work with Shakespeare and that continuous work with Shakespeare that I continue to learn so much. He is a master teacher, even 400, 500 years later. And that the experience of understanding where he takes people, for instance, this play, for me, very much hinged on Richard II's journey and his sort of being on top, needing to stay on top and trying to perform his way on top, and then having this sort of more bolstery and or clearly king-like enemy in his midst, who is also a brother, is like a cousin to him. And then that reversal of him having to take the fact that he can't remain king and be who he is. Who he is actually antithetical to king. And so for me, that whenever I can find those parallels and those structures, I often just lean on Shakespeare. It's easy because he's dead. And he's good.
And he's good.
And he shows us so many. There are so many things that you can constantly go back and unravel from him. So many. You wonder, how do you solve this? How do you solve caring about someone after they've sort of been deposed? What do you do? How do you get them to still be alive but not be the victim? And he solves it. Because in Richard II, he then delivers, at the end of his life, right before he dies, he delivers the most beautiful speech in all of Shakespeare canon history. When he speaks about, atomizing the world, and, I'm going to make these nuts and bolts. That's the most beautiful thing, but we understand him because we then connect to his sort of desolation.